Welcome to Next Man Up, proactive DFS strategies based on inactive NFL players. I'm Mike Davis, the Q&A columnist at fftoday.com, and I'm joined by Matthew Schiff, the survivor pool expert who did a lot better job picking players in week 8 than I did. I think his biggest hit of the week was Terrell Pryor. He talked me into putting Pryor into a lot of lineups, which was great for me, but I talked him into putting Ty Montgomery into a lot of lineups. Fortunately, Matthew, I understand you were able to swap him out. What were your other big picks?
Yeah, I hit big on Travis Kelce. He really was a monster. And Palmer was solid. Wasn't the best guy up, but he was definitely in the top 5.
Okay, yeah, you had some great instincts, Matthew. We both had good instincts in week 7. We batted 1,000 on our feature players then, but Next Man Up took a big step back in week 8. First off, the big disappointment was Ty Montgomery not playing, and then my long shot pick on Brock Osweiler didn't work out. But to your credit, you warned me against that. You said that even though he was playing against a terrible Detroit defense, you still had no interest in him, and you were right. Devontae Booker almost did enough. He was good enough to justify his price on his productivity with 83 yards and a TD, but that fumble means that he ended up not justifying his price. So really, the only player that I featured last week that I could say worked out was Washington tight end Vernon Davis, who was cheap and came up with 93 yards. Would have been much better if he'd come through with a TD, but I was satisfied with him. He didn't kill your lineups like the other players did. We'll try to do better with our featured players for week 9, and here's a reminder of the 3 self-evident principles we use to select them. 1, it's better to operate with more information than less, so we go out of our way to let the latest injury news influence our lineups. 2, the backups who fill in for injured stars are often thrust into high-volume situations that aren't reflected in their pricing on DFS sites like DraftKings. And 3, for tournament play, plugging in no-name backups who may come out of nowhere is an easy and effective way to achieve differentiation from the crowd. And when I talk about people no one's ever heard of and get to my running back selection this week, you'll know what I'm talking about. But first, I want to start with my quarterback pick, and it's pretty obvious. I've gone with Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be involved in what looks to be a shootout with Indianapolis this week. And because the Green Bay backfield is so banged up, it turns out that Aaron Rodgers, remember, can run. He had 60 yards rushing in week 8. And so with the injuries to the running backs in Green Bay, I expect him to have some impact on the rushing game. Of course, he's not cheap, but FF Today has Devontae Adams of the Green Bay receivers ranked very highly this week. So I like that Rodgers-Adams stack. We're going to cover Charkandrick West a bit later. I want Matthew to talk about that. We'll get to it on another ticket. Matthew was high on Michael Thomas last week. Wasn't as good as we might have expected, but he certainly wasn't a dud. I'm expecting good things from him again this week, so he's in this lineup. I like Greg Olsen probably more than any tight end this week, and so he was my high-priced player that I worked in because of some savings worked in elsewhere. And Tavon Austin is one of the reasons I was able to save money. I like him a lot against a pitiful Carolina secondary, and especially the cornerback that he's most likely to face. I guess the real problem that I have with my tickets overall is maybe I've overplayed the Chief defense. Jacksonville can always come through, especially in garbage time. So maybe they're not as strong a play as I think they are, but I think they're pretty strong. Matthew, any thoughts, criticisms of this ticket?
I actually like your thoughts about going with Tavon Austin in LA. They're coming back. They're really actually a very good offense. And if you look at the offense there, Case Keenum, he's going to actually be under center with no chance of a short leash. They really think he's going to be a great quarterback option out there. And in fact, I actually have played Kenny Britt because both of them are about $4,400 or $4,200, and I like both of them as a potential fill-in that price range this week.
Okay, so go ahead.
I was going to say everybody else on the lineup there. The only stretch I think that you have out of this group is the Greg Olsen play, because I think there's some other values that you can get for a little bit less money. But I understand that you want to get him because he's your high price item in this ticket.
Right, and in order to accommodate him, I had to make some sacrifices elsewhere, and one of those sacrifices was taking a bit of a gamble on Kenneth Dixon. It's not clear how big a role he'll have with Baltimore coming out of the bye, but I did some reading about this, and it turns out that Joe Flacco is terrible at passing against Pittsburgh. I mean, over his career, and so Baltimore almost never has an effective air game against Pittsburgh. They have to run, and it looks like Kenneth Dixon at only $3,600 could be the beneficiary of that approach. So it is a gamble, certainly. I'll acknowledge that, but that's how I ended up making those decisions. Let's move on to my second ticket because we want to make time to get plenty of Matthews tickets in to this installment. Here's one that I'm sure Matthew's going to want to warn me away from. I've done the unforgivable and put in a QB wide receiver stack of Colin Kaepernick and Quentin Patton. Again, that saves me money and lets me do things elsewhere and lets me take a chance on Colin Kaepernick against a horrible New Orleans defense. We've also got Ezekiel Elliott. Matthew, why don't you tell the listeners why you like Ezekiel Elliott so much this week?
Well, look at the Cleveland defense, okay? If you go in there, they're ranked 31st against the run. You want to take advantage of those type of rankings. But Elliott has just been a top 5 running back all season long. Top 2 in touchdowns. That's what you're going to have. Cleveland, he's going to get at least 1 or 2 dives, and he'll get the yardage. That's going to be a monster and worth the $7,900 for the week.
Okay, I 100% agree with you, which is why he's in so many of my tickets this week. This ticket features Kyle Rudolph. He's my featured tight end this week. Only $4,000, and yet Minnesota's offense has to come out of something. It's not coming out of the running game. The whole running back core is still banged up, and so it's going to be on Bradford to pass the ball either to Stephon Diggs or to Kyle Rudolph. And so I built one ticket in which the Rudolph scenario plays out and another in which the Diggs ticket plays out. We'll get to that one a little later. You saw me pick Devontae Adams in what I consider to be a likely Green Bay shootout above. Here I flexed Randall Cobb into the lineup. And I've also got Derrick Henry. I know you're high on him this week, Matthew. Why don't you give the listeners some background on him?
Well, the thing about you have Murray down in Tennessee. He has a turf toe issue. It's not really, a big problem, but they're probably going to lean on Henry a little bit more like they did last week when he went down. And I really like the value in Henry. I think he's probably going to get 15 to 20 touches, which as a flex player is exactly what you want. And it's going to be high value touches as well.
Okay, right. And of course, at only $5,000, the price is right if he delivers anything approaching the standard DeMarco Murray performance. All right, moving on to my third ticket. My featured player in this one is Dante Moncrief. And usually I focus on injuries that are taking players out. But in this case, I'm focusing on an injury that is really decreasing a player's value. Moncrief was injured for so long in the early part of the season that I think the DraftKings pricing index just isn't taking into account how talented he is. And so I was delighted to put together a triple. I love the Green Bay Indy game this week. And of course, I have a lot of focus on Green Bay players. Here I put together a triple stack with Andrew Luck, Dante Moncrief, and T.Y. Hilton. So if Luck goes off, as I expect he will, and he goes off through Hilton and Moncrief, which seems to be the most likely way that he would, then this ticket really pays off. Of course, you see Charkandrick West here again. I said I'd get to him later. And the reason that he's such a good play this week is that Spencer Ware's concussion makes it, I think, pretty much certain at this point, although don't hold me to that he won't play, which means that Charkandrick West, who was a perfectly serviceable relief running back in the past, will be stepping in as Jamal Charles is obviously a non-factor in Kansas City. This lets me work in the magical play from Matthew last week, Travis Kelce. So you can see I'm banking on some productivity from the Chiefs here, and then I also have their defense in. So you see I've got a triple stack of Indy and a triple stack of Chiefs. Also, I saved so much money everywhere else that I was able to put Ezekiel Elliott into my flex position, and I love working him into any lineup I can. Are there any changes you want to make to this lineup, Matthew?
Well, in analyzing your lineup, I understand the philosophy of going strong Indy against Green Bay. They're not Atlanta. Don't expect that same type of production. In fact, I kind of worry about Indianapolis's offensive production. It's not what it should be. And I know Moncrief has been injured, and yes, we're hoping for him to come back. My thing is, you're betting this ticket based upon potential versus, something that's tried, true, and steady, which might have been a little bit safer way to go.
You know what, Matthew? You've really okay. Part of the reason I like Moncrief this week is he was a better performer than Hilton last week because of obviously Hilton's hamstring injury. But Hilton is reported to be recovered from his hamstring injury, but I'm not sure I believe that report. I think Hilton might, in fact, still be injured. And that he may be going out as a decoy, and that the big gun here could be Moncrief. And since you're saying that you're a little bit reluctant to have me overload on Colts in this way, I want to swap Hilton out for somebody. Who would you have me put into his place?
Wow. Well, you're giving up $7,600 worth of salary. So right. If you make that move, the question is, do you want to reach for Antonio Brown, which I actually think is going to be a great play with Ben Roethlisberger expected back under center this week.
Okay.
So if you're going to reach for the 8,900, the question is, how do you get another $1,300 less in value? I don't think you do. My problem is we're going to have to find somebody who's in that range. So Brandon Cooks in New Orleans, while you didn't have a great play from Michael Thomas last week, I think Brandon Cooks could be a phenomenal play.
All right. You sold me. I think you were right to talk me out of the Colts triple stack. I love getting this feedback from you, Matthew. All right, and go ahead.
I still want to look at your roster with regards to that. I want to make a comment about certain things which I like and I don't like all at the same time.
Okay, go ahead.
The Elliott play is a nice add-in. Charcandrick West, first and foremost, Spencer Ware has been ruled out for Sunday's game. It's a
okay.
So West is a great play. In addition, you have Bishop Sankey, who's been signed by the Chiefs as the only viable option as a backup. Andy Reid has come out to say West is going to get the majority of the carries. So as a DraftKings specialist, this is a great value play at 4,400.
So that's what you like, but there's also something you don't like.
Yeah, I have a problem with Kansas City's offense as a whole this week. Nick Foles is stepping in. Yes, he's done well. Okay? Yes, he'll probably play very well under Andy Reid's system. My problem is Jacksonville is really going to stretch this defense. Their defense, I think you have better chances and a better value play if you take the $3,500 off with the Chiefs. And
okay.
A play that I like, very, very strong play at $3,100.
The Eagles?
Home.
I'm sorry, say it again.
The $3,100 play at home. The Dolphins hosting the Jets.
Okay. Yes, I see how that could be a good play. That saves me money. You know what, man? You've got me thinking. You've also got me worried about Kelsey, maybe.
I think Kelsey will be the safety. He'll be the security blanket for Foles. Remember, when Foles was in Philadelphia, he used to throw to his tight ends like you wouldn't believe. He is the perfect play to have.
Okay, good.
Play. The question is now, what do you have if you don't want to use Cooks? Can you move up? You take a Cooper, who's going to, he's playing the number one defense, but he'll be a 19 versus, 18. Well, is it worth it?
Well, so here's my thinking, Matthew. I already have one ticket with Devontae Adams. I have one ticket with Randall Cobb. I do expect a huge day from Aaron Rodgers. So why not give myself a shot with Jordy Nelson, right? Just round out distribute my Green Bay receivers over tickets. Do you like that idea?
Right, and it gives you a lot of different. Again, this is for the player who has multiple tickets in DraftKings and wants to know that they've got a blanket. Just like an investor would do in the market, they want to have different plays for different styles.
Right. We're diversifying our portfolio of Green Bay receivers right here. Okay, cool. Love that feedback, Matthew. And now we will proceed to the fourth ticket. This fourth ticket features my sneaky running back play, which is Dajuan Harris. The thing about Dajuan Harris, I'm going to try to sell you on Dajuan Harris. He has 5 plays of over 20 yards in just 49 touches. Carlos Hyde is likely to play, but still has a shoulder injury, and the coaching staff is already telling us they'll use Harris as a change of pace back. He only costs $3,000. He doesn't have to do that much to justify that price tag, and I think he'll do it. He certainly surged ahead of Mike Davis in the San Francisco backfield. And, of course, he's going up against pitiful, pitiful New Orleans. So that's my sales pitch on Harris. Are you buying that, Matthew?
I'll buy the Harris play. However, I think you have a better chance of plugging him in as your flex at $3,000 and upgrading to $4,900 in your running back over Allen Hurns.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that. First, let me throw in Harris. Oh, I have to alphabetize this stuff. It's just too annoying to hunt. Okay. So my flex is taken care of. Leaves me $5K to upgrade at running back.
And if you go by salaries, you're going to find some great values at $5,000 versus what you had.
There's Derrick Henry again.
Derrick Henry. Well, we have to Henry and some other stuff. The question is, do you want to take Mark Ingram?
I kind of do. Versus a kind of anemic San Francisco offense. Why wouldn't Ingram get a lot of volume?
Except for the fact that he fumbled the ball last week and allowed Hightower in there, and the Hightower is going to be splitting carries, at least 10 to 15 touches, which will take away from Ingram's value. That's probably why Ingram is valued, and he's priced at $4,800. In fact, I would recommend click on Mark Ingram's card right there while you're on the screen. And then do yourself a favor and go look at the game log. Right there, you're seeing difference in pricing each and every week. So you have 5,000. His value has been declining based upon the number of carries that he's getting.
Right.
The question is, at 4,800, he only got 3 touches after he had the fumbles there.
Okay, so
normal week, that probably isn't worth a $4,800 play, even though it's a great matchup.
Right, and it does not look like. Well, FF Today has him as a high-end RB2 this week. That's their projection. I mean, they still have faith in him.
Well, if that's true, and he gets more of the week 4 type of touches, where he has 18 touches for 56 yards and a touchdown, and then also has another 6 receptions, that's a great week, especially as your running back at $5,000. I think Derrick Henry, compare him on your listing. Where does Henry fall versus where does Ingram fall?
Well, okay, so this is where you get the judgment call that Kruger and co have to make about players. It's not a certainty that Henry will be getting all these carries away from DeMarco Murray. So, in fact, Henry isn't ranked very high at all in FF Today's rankings. I mean, they could be wrong about that. I'm not even seeing him. He's looking at maybe a low-end RB2, more like a high-end RB3 on these projections.
And where does West fall?
West is, middle RB1, like about 7th or 8th.
Okay. Plug him in for $4,400 and then find something you want to upgrade.
Okay. Man, I'm all over West, and I'm just never getting away from West.
Because he's the only one carrying the ball. When you want touches, you go with the person they know they have to play. West is going to play until he breaks. That's what you're betting on.
Matthew, looking at it, I don't mind leaving the 600 on the board. I do want to build a Breeze stack on one of my tickets.
Actually, I want to talk about your Stefan Diggs pick.
Okay.
Because in my picks, I have 3 picks, and I put Diggs. No, don't take him out.
Oh, okay.
I actually absolutely love Diggs as a play because I don't think there's another player who's better than him. Even Terrell Pryor, who is a good play that we hit on last week, I think he's going to be your player in Cleveland, getting 7 to 10 targets every single week. It's a consistent thing. Stefan Diggs, it's an interesting call because they just lost Norv Turner. Where are they going to distribute the ball? Tried, true, and steady. That's what they're going to get out of Stefan Diggs. And
yeah, I agree.
I think Bradford's play to Diggs all day long is a great one there. I think you're right. Leave the $600 on the table. Or if you wanted to upgrade Michael Thomas, that's a possibility. But I don't really see another reason why you'd want to swap this out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that I have more faith in any New Orleans receiver than Michael Thomas. I'm like, if I could switch him for Brandon Cooks, I don't know that I necessarily want to. I already have Cooks in another ticket, so I'm all right with it. I'm just leaving the money. Okay, so that takes us through my 4 tickets and my 4 featured players. Matthew, let's look at your tickets and talk about your logic.
Okay, well, load them up. You've got my screen ready to share.
Should be going.
Okay. Well, as you can see, and I've got 3 different plays. One that started on Thursday night. So this is a ticket that I'm already up 28 points on. And I really went heavy on Julio Jones, thinking that the Atlanta-Tampa Bay game would be a strong, very high-scoring game. This ticket, however, you could build around this ticket and say, okay, I'm not going to use a Julio Jones, and I'm going to try to find a wide receiver like an Antonio Brown that might be a great play with Ben Roethlisberger coming back, and say, okay, well, what else can I do? Do I want to upgrade my Kenny Britt play? Because I think Kenny Britt, you already talked about Tavon Austin about this week, and we were talking about Case Keenum under center. I think he's got his head on right, even with the interceptions against the Giants in his week before his bye. I think that they're going to really rely on him and let Todd Gurley finally, they were trying to figure out how to open some holes for him because he's had very, very few yards before he was hit. And again, not a lot of yards after the carry. So yards after contact. Specifically, my tickets that I built around in the first one was a triple play on the Dallas Cowboys. I happen to think a play against Cleveland is a really good play, especially you were talking about Ezekiel Elliott. Dak Prescott, while he's not an Aaron Rodgers or a Drew Brees this week, I think combining him with Jason Witten, there you're going to get 12 points on every single touchdown, 10 points because you got 4 out of the quarterback. But the key here is I matched them up as a pair, and then I put in a triple play saying, okay, how can I get some value or find a real good steal in Charkandrick West?
Sure.
And then we talked about the Dolphins being at $3,100 playing the New York Jets. That's a real steal. My next ticket, I'm not a lover of the Panthers defense. I mean, the Panthers are playing this week against
weak Los Angeles.
They're playing Los Angeles, which is the same Kenny Britt, Case Keenum, Tavon Austin, and the what is it? The blueprint for beating the Panthers is out there. Palmer did it last week. Breeze did it before. You just have to pass on them. The fact that Josh Norman is no longer around, big difference. This defense has a different feel to it this year.
Yeah, it's unrecognizable.
Unrecognizable. But the reason why I took the Panthers is that the LA Rams are last in offense.
Sure. I can buy that logic every day of the week.
And that's the only reason I took them. I think that Drew Brees, again, I put Drew, we were talking about different wide receivers. I did a Drew Brees, Willie Snead combo right here. And while I fell short a little bit on Emmanuel Sanders, I think against Oakland, Denver's going to be able to really get a lot of chances to go deep, and he's a possession guy. I think they finally figured out that Marius Thomas should stretch the field, and why I put him in my third ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Value play for me. I think that Jordan Matthews is going to actually find a lot of targets against New York Giants secondary. I think they're susceptible. I'm a Giants fan. I talk about it in the column, but I'm realistic. And Melvin Gordon has done something that no one else has done against Denver all season long. He ran for over 100 yards against that defense last week. That is one hell of a stellar achievement, especially considering what that defense has done overall. Now, I'm pairing him also with Antonio Gates. And the reason why I like that is Henry, the other tight end in San Diego, is ruled out. And Gates has had 19 targets in the last 2 weeks, and he's going back to his stud status while there's nobody else vulturing his receptions.
Okay. Yeah, I can buy that.
The last one is I had Tim Hightower on my New Orleans game. I thought that, okay, we were talking about Mark Ingram. Hightower is going to get a little more time. I think that Antonio Brown on this ticket is going to have the benefit of Ben Roethlisberger coming back. I think that you'll see him go deep, especially against the Baltimore Ravens. I think that's a great combination. And then I actually thought that Dallas is beatable down the middle. And Gary Barnidge should get a number of targets this week that'll make him a nice value play and allow him to, just fit in nicely, because I was able to reach on Antonio Brown, reach on Elliott, and also grab Demaryius Thomas, get a good value play out of Matthews, and then I was like, okay, where do I fill in? So West filled that one in, and the Dolphins as well.
Okay, so I love your logic on all three tickets, but the thing that leaps out at me is that when you're playing these tournament plays, you just can't have duds. I mean, we saw it last week. Ty Montgomery was a ticket killer if you left him in after the injury was announced. That's just it. You were done. You couldn't win, no matter how well your Terrell Pryor pick worked out, no matter how well your other picks worked out. So my problem with Jordan Matthews is he's ranked about 20th on the FF Today ranks, and you are going to live or die by him. And he could hit. I buy your logic that he could be a complete home run against the Giants. I get it, but I wouldn't want him on every ticket. And so on your third ticket, what I would do is I would try to figure out a way to dump Matthews for Des Bryant. And the reason is, A, Des Bryant is ranked 10th. I mean, well ahead of Matthews in the rankings. And the second reason is it's really hard to win a tournament play if you aren't stacking your quarterback with one of his receivers. You stacked Prescott with Witten in your first ticket, love it, but you don't have him stacked with anyone unless you're saying Ezekiel Elliott is going to get so many. Well, I guess, Elliott is an effective pass-catching back, and yeah. I'm not saying you have to have Des Bryant, but, man, I'd probably want to get a Dallas receiver in with Dak to make that ticket whole in sort of my strategy.
I agree with what you're talking about with the stack. My question, and I also agree with Matthews being on all of my tickets. My issue is,
how are you going to afford Bryant?
I can't afford Bryant. To get Bryant, I'd have to go up literally about $1,700. So to get $1,700 worth of value, I have to drop $1,700 worth of value out of my second receiver, or somewhere else.
Yeah, and you've gotten a good value with Hightower, and I don't dispute that Brown is worth the price. I love that you've gotten him in. So I did a quick search. Beasley is not ranked very high this week by FF Today, so he doesn't look like a good swap for Matthews. So maybe you have to accept that Elliott and Prescott are your Dallas stack. I can go with that, but I still think maybe getting away from Jordan Matthews on at least one ticket is a good way of diversifying. And I don't know. So maybe not a Dallas receiver, but someone else in his price range, perhaps, because FF Today has 19 receivers ranked ahead of him.
What about Allen Hurns?
Allen Hurns is not ranked ahead of him.
Michael Thomas.
I like Thomas more than I like him, but no, FF Today does not like, as a consensus, no.
And I can't lean on Devontae Parker. I can't lean on Kenny Britt. Don't like Sammy Coates.
Oh, no, that's just...
I have to say, I mean, unfortunately, the way I built this ticket, and that's the thing, it's not so much the fact that we don't want to get them out of the tickets, but I think the way I built these tickets, I have to really rely on two players that are across all three tickets, and you talked about it. The two players are Jordan Matthews and Ezekiel Elliott, are the way I can provide some structure to the rest of my lineup, and or at least flexibility. But I have to.
Yeah, well,
what's that?
It's actually three players. I see Charkandrick West in all three as well. And here's the thing, man. I think the running back scenario is clear. I think going with West and Elliott in all three tickets, perfectly fine. I think that's a solid play because there's such good values and there's such good volume there. There's no way I can argue that you're taking a gamble. With Jordan with any receiver, it's always dicey about whether he's going to come through, and that's
actually no. The Giant defense last year was dead last in yards given up. You have to assume that, and again, we're talking about the new rookie quarterback in Philadelphia. He's going to be able to take care of, he's proven that he can take care of the ball, distribute it, and will actually take advantage of what the Giants give him. And that's exactly what Spags does.
Okay, here's the thing about Matthew Schiff. We have argued on this program in the past, and in most cases, he has been right. So what we're going to do is we're going to revisit this next week. We're going to look at his triple play, the West, Elliott, and Matthews play across three tickets and see if it did work out. If it's a home run hit on all three, I will give him all due praise. He hasn't sold me to do this across multiple tickets, but I can see why he buys it, and I can see why some listeners might buy it. But we are coming up against our time, so Matthew, I'll put it to you for a final comment before wrapping things up.
Like you said, I think we've found a handful of players that are probably the standouts for the week. We include Elliott, West. We have some reaches with regards to some steady plays like Brown and some other players that we have already played. If you've got a ticket like Jones, you've done very well so far. Besides that, I look forward to hearing, seeing what we do. It's always fun to watch these games unfold on Sunday.
Right, and I think probably putting a percentage on it, I think Matthew is more likely to be right about the three players that he's built into his tickets than I am to be right about gambling on people like Quentin Patton and Colin Kaepernick and DeJuan Harris, those 49er picks. I like the long shots. Matthew's probably got a clearer head on this stuff. So that's where we end up on this installment of Next Man Up. We'll see you guys next Saturday for Next Man Up and for Matthew Schiff. This is Mike Davis signing off.